A woman snapped a steel saw blade in half and buried the pieces inside ground beef. After mixing it thoroughly, she wrapped it tightly in plastic wrap and left it in the freezer overnight. The next day at work, she slipped the food to an inmate through a guard she was friendly with. Mike played it cool, unwrapping the package right in front of the guard. Seeing nothing but ground beef inside, the guard walked away satisfied. Once Mike was sure no one in the cell block was watching, he quickly thawed the frozen meat with water, pulled out the hidden saw blade, and began preparing for his escape. Next, he tore toilet paper into long strips, broke apart an entire box of matches, wrapped them tightly in the paper, and stuffed the bundle into an instant noodle bag. Then Mike showed up in the common area and signaled to his partner on another floor as they passed each other on the stairs. The handoff went smoothly. While everyone was gathered downstairs for activities, the accomplice quietly started a fire in the cell next to Mike's shortly after he left. The flames spread fast, the alarm blared, and guards rushed in to put out the fire. But the room was already blackened with smoke and would need a fresh coat of paint. This was exactly the key step Mike had planned. He then handed the saw blade fragments to John, who got to work making their escape tools with practiced hands. John wrapped cloth strips around both ends of the blade, secured them, and snapped it in half down the middle. Then he pulled out a nail clipper, used a rubber band to fasten one end of the blade tightly, and wrapped the whole thing in thick layers of cloth. Within minutes, 2 handy tools were ready. John secretly passed one of the tools to Mike. During the day, while other inmates were out for activities, the two split up the work. One pretended to paint the wall while keeping watch, and the other hid inside, sawing through the ventilation grid. Mike had even figured out ahead of time how to collect the metal shavings. He lined up a row of small magnets, wrapped them in brown paper, and placed them on the floor. Every bit of falling debris stuck to the magnets and was later flushed down the toilet without a trace. On top of that, they soundproofed the bed legs to avoid any noise when moving the frame. Taking turns like this, working back and forth, they managed to cut through the vent in just 2 weeks. To avoid detection, they taped over the outside and painted it to match. Once it dried, you couldn't tell anything was different. Late at night, the two first used a mirror to make sure no one was outside. Then they piled clothes into the shape of a body, peeled back the tape, pushed open the vent cover, and carefully climbed out. They slid the bed back into place and pulled down a picture to cover the hole. Crouching low, they moved through the ducts, making their way quietly to the lower level. It was pitch black down there, but both men could barely contain their excitement. They followed the pipes for a long time without finding an end, so Mike suggested they split up and explore different directions the next day. They carefully compared their positions above ground with where they'd ended up the night before. That night, they went back in and continued searching for an exit. This time, John went deeper and caught his first glimpse of the prison's outer wall, but a thick barrier stood directly in the way. He reported back to Mike and said they'd need a sledgehammer to break through. Mike told him there was a backup tool chest below the pipes, and inside was exactly the hammer he needed. That night, John opened the chest, grabbed the sledgehammer, and started pounding the wall day after day, strike after strike. After what must have been 100,000 blows, he finally reached the prison's exterior wall, but it was over 6 feet thick, solid, reinforced concrete. John was ready to give up right then and there. At this rate, it would take at least 5 more years to break through. Mike tried to lift his spirits, telling him to think about Andy from Shawshank. If you stay focused on one thing long enough, you'll eventually succeed. But reality wasn't so forgiving. After 3 months of relentless hammering, John's hands were covered in blisters, and all he had to show for it was a small hole. The turning point came late one night while resting. John stared at the heating pipe in front of him, and suddenly, it hit him. He turned to Mike and said, "Why are we even trying to smash through the wall? The heat shuts off in June and the pipes will be empty. All we have to do is cut a hole in the pipe, crawl through to the other end, and break out from there."